really appreciate some time from Hunter Yurachek, Arkansas Athletic Director, giving us some of his time here. Hunter, I'm bummed out we won't be seeing each other at Baum-Walker Stadium today because I was going to bring a winter blanket with me. I was going to bring my gloves. We were going to have a fire set in the booth just to stay warm, but ended up canceling it anyway. How's your day going aside from that?
It's going great. You were looking forward to that much more than I was, for sure. It doesn't feel like baseball weather on April 20th. It's hard to believe that the weather we had here yesterday and what it's supposed to be like today.
Yeah, I think it would be kind of painful to try to play baseball today, and baseball teams got other things to worry about other than trying to stay warm today, and that's trying to stay atop the West Division. And really, it feels like every team that's competing right now in the spring season. I mean, right down to tennis, and I know soccer's got a national seed, and softball is crushing it. It's got to be one of the most amazing spring seasons of your career as an athletic director overall, is it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we had a stage back there in March where we had 16 different sports competing with the overlap of some of our winter and fall sports that are now playing in the spring. And of those 16 sports at the time, we had 14 that were ranked in the top 25 nationally during roughly a 3-week stretch. And I spoke to our student athlete advisory council yesterday and talked about. I mean, we've had I think 10 teams ranked in the 10 teams ranked in the top 10. We've had multiple teams, I think, up to 5 ranked in the top 5, and 3 have ranked as high as number 1 this year. So just an amazing job by our student athletes, and I think they just continue to feed off of each other and have just been amazing and pushing through what has been a very challenging year for them, both athletically and personally, and credit to our head coaches for their great leadership as well.
Well, Hunter, it's already been an interesting day as far as Razorback news is concerned. Mike Woods announcing on his social media that he's going to go in the transfer portal. And I'm not asking you to comment about that specifically. This just, it feels that we've just celebrated how Coach Eric Musselman, built an Elite 8 team partially through that portal and then rebuilds next year's team so quickly through that portal. Women's basketball doing the same thing. But the transfer portal works both ways, and it feels like today, we're getting a big dose of reality in that right now.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I think when I checked yesterday with our coaches, there's over 2,000 football players in the transfer portal and over 1,000 men's and/or women's basketball players in the portal, and many of them are not going to find a spot. But that's the reality of what college athletics is today, and whether it's the situation just is not quite right for you as a young man or young woman on the team that you're at, whether that's a playing time issue, whether that's a culture issue, whatever the case may be, there's a lot of movement. And I think, yes, there's positives and there's negatives to that. I think from a fan standpoint, it could be negative where you watched a student athlete come in as a freshman at your institution and they'd be there for 3, 4, 5 years. You'd fall in love with them, and they were truly Razorbacks in our case. And now it's, young men and women may only be at your institution for a year, and just as you start to really get to know them as a person and get to really enjoy their talents, then they're moving on somewhere else, whether it's as a graduate student. And so it's just part of the culture of college athletics today. I think, it will right itself here in the next few years as student athletes figure this out, because many of them are not going to find a home, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that is an unfortunate truth about that. But when you are these conversations that you have with your coaches about not players that they think might end up leaving and players that they're looking for, but when you're hiring coaches or the discussion, is it ever about how do you build a team in the reality of college athletics? Because it can't just be done through recruiting high school players. It can't just be done through the transfer portal. And it really feels like this has happened so quickly. And that's why it feels like Eric Musselman just always has his pulse on how to build a basketball team in college basketball and was ahead of the game, I think, more so than most other coaches.
I think Eric was ahead of the game because of being in the professional venue and professional basketball coach for so long, because you don't know what kind of hand you're going to be dealt most times from one year to the next, especially in the G League as a coach. And I think, he was always having to fit pieces to the puzzle together to build a team. And I think that's what many coaches, especially in basketball, are going to have to do because, you see basketball rosters from one school to the next turning over on a fairly regular basis. And you really have to be a master at kind of projecting what your roster was going to look like and projecting kind of where you need the different pieces to that puzzle to fill in the gaps that you have in your program. And so Eric for sure was ahead of that. And I think a lot of that's tied to his professional basketball background.
Hunter Yurachek, the director of athletics with the University of Arkansas, joining us here on Halftime. Mr. Yurachek, when you look at kind of with how capacity's been, we've seen the increase in capacity with Baum Stadium and Bogle Park a couple weeks ago getting to half capacity. In your estimation, what are the chances that you think we could be at full capacity by the end of the season?
I don't see us being at full capacity by the end of either one of those sports are in Bogle Park or Baum-Walker Stadium. I do see us increasing capacity. We did from February to March to April, and I think we'll do the same thing from April to May as we look at especially those two SEC series we have on the baseball side. Our softball team will be done other than NCAA events at the end of this month. And so I think you'll see some capacity increases, but that will never look like Ole Miss or Mississippi State did. I know that's what our fans compare us to, but we're not going to do that this year at Baum-Walker Stadium, but we will continue to increase our capacity. And
hopefully by the time we get to football season, maybe we're getting closer to that point because with vaccines rolling out, we've seen continual low numbers that are being reported from the state of Arkansas with COVID cases here in the state. And I kind of want to transition that into vaccines throughout, like maybe within the athletic department and with student athletes. How's it been going with the student athletes and getting the opportunities to get their COVID vaccines?
Sure. And I would say that we've got about 2/3 of our student-athlete population that's fully vaccinated at this point, and that includes the majority of our spring sports student-athletes who are competing right now. And more than 75% of our staff members are fully vaccinated right now. So I think our student-athletes see that. The majority of them is a big plus to their competition. They've been through a great deal, and our COVID testing is down to just a couple of hundred tests a week, and we were close to 800-900 a week just 4 to 6 weeks ago before we really started rolling these vaccinations out. So our student athletes, that's something that the majority of them, but not all of them, have embraced, and we're continuing to try to educate and provide those opportunities to those that have not been vaccinated. But that's a personal choice at this point in time. And you talk about the fall, we're very cautiously optimistic that Razorback Stadium will be full this fall and that there'll be tailgating, that we'll have the Hogtown, that we'll have, Tusk and our cheerleaders and our band, and we'll return to a true SEC collegiate game day experience. We're selling tickets. Season ticket sales have been phenomenal to date. We have Texas coming in here. We open with Rice. We have Texas the second weekend of the season, and we anticipate that Razorback Stadium will have 70,000 plus Razorback fans on September the 11th when we face Texas.
Smackdown. And Maddie, I was getting tested for COVID at Barnhill through their testing program from November through really last week, because now I'm 3 weeks after when I got the second shot. Hunter, the undertaking that you guys did and are still doing for the testing protocol was incredible and successful too, because it really never felt like any of the teams were really impacted in ways that some other departments were. And it felt like you almost had to open up a whole extra arm of the athletic department just to do that.
Absolutely. We're closing in on 30,000 COVID tests that we have conducted just as a Department of Athletics since we returned back in June. And that really, it took the resource, that's significant resources. You just kind of average that out roughly $100 per test. Then you have to have the manpower to make sure that that's staffed appropriately so that your student athletes and staff aren't waiting. Until you saw this, you don't wait very long for your test, and we move people through, and then we've had a great partnership with the Natural State Laboratories over in Little Rock to analyze those tests and give us the results in less than 24 hours. And we've learned a lot since June and become much more efficient in that. But mean, a credit to our athletic training team, and it's really been led by Dave England, who thought he was going to retire last year. We asked him to hang on board and kind of be our czar of COVID testing, and he's just done an incredible job. And I know he's looking forward to putting this behind him and hopefully officially retiring on June the 30th.
Yeah, Dave would be there every single time. Every time I see him, I thought he retired. No, it was like the opposite of retirement. Hunter, I have to ask about this, because you guys, Arkansas just hosted NCAA track championships. Baseball and softball are in position to host regionals and perhaps super regionals too. And I know you've already put in for baseball super regional and regional hosting. I feel maybe there was a bit of an overreaction from last week. People thinking that the NCAA has made an announcement that they're not hosting any sort of events in Arkansas or other states that the NCAA views as having some anti-transgender laws. I didn't see that in the statement. I saw them monitoring the situation. So I wonder, it's a week after. Nothing's happened, so I know there's nothing for you to react to there, but that statement does say they're monitoring. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think our baseball and softball programs have both earned the rights to host regionals and hopefully super regionals. If we advance that far, we put a bid in for both. And I don't foresee the statement that the NCAA made last week about the transgender laws in our state will impact our ability to host baseball and/or softball championships. I think it's just what you said it is. I think it was a statement by the NCAA. There was no action taken last week. They just kind of put out there where they stood, what their thoughts were as an organization and as our governing body, and that they will continue to monitor the situation from state to state.
Okay. Last thing I want to get to here, and I want to have a little fun with this. Now, you played basketball in college, correct?
Yeah, very small school now, so don't give me too much credit.
That's okay. Athletes are athletes, no matter what level. It's being athletic.
There you go. Thank you for that.
Yes, you're welcome. I want to ask where do you think you might have more success? If you had to step into the batter's box against Jackson Wiggins or Kevin Kopps, or maybe in against Autumn Storms or Mary Half, or maybe stop an Anna Podojol penalty kick, or maybe had to guard Jalen Williams one-on-one. Any one of those things do you think you could have a modicum of success at?
Well, I can tell you one thing. I stepped in the batter's box 2 years ago against Matt Cronin, and he threw me his changeup, and I couldn't catch up with his changeup. So I'm going to leave the baseball and softball pitchers aside, and I'm going to go with, maybe I could stop Jalen Williams if I got him to start outside far enough. If he's posting me up, probably no chance. But if I get him to start outside the 3-point line, maybe have a fighting chance to stop him.
I think you'd have to hope he dribbled it off his foot, right?
I know I could foul the heck out of him. Let's put it that way.
That's right.
Send him to the free throw line.
That's right. Well, I hear the NCAA may be giving 6 fouls next year, so you got an extra one to work with. Appreciate that.
Perfect. I would have benefited from that greatly in my career.
Oh, that's funny. Hunter, we'll let you go with that. Really appreciate you joining us. I know you got a ton going on. Congrats on re-signing Eric Musselman to the extension. Great things, and great things happening this spring at Arkansas.
Well, Phil, thank you. You haven't had a Tuesday night off in a while, so enjoy it.
I will. You got that right. Laundry and shampoo. That's what Tuesday is going to be all about. And since I have no hair, I think I'll save up on the shampoo.
That's awesome, Phil. Well, thank you guys for having me on, and appreciate all you do for sports across the state of Arkansas.
And we appreciate what you do for the state of Arkansas as well. That's Hunter Yurachek. All right, 877-377-6963 if you'd like to react to that. And we'll come back and wrap up the first hour of halftime right after this.